What's going on here? Oops. Are we live? Hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Prospero.ai stock market live stream. It's good to see an old name in the chat, Wolf Stigma, watching on YouTube today. Here nice and early. What's up, Wolf? How have you been? I hope everything has been well, and maybe you've been watching in the background some of these live streams recently. I hope you all had a great weekend. The stock market is green today as we open up here. The QQQ SPY, Dow Jones, IWM, all in the green. But you know what's interesting here? The VIX is actually up today 5%, even though the markets are green. So I'll have to ask George about that. But we have a lot of amazing topics here today. George is still on the road, so I don't know how his setup will be. We'll see once he tunes in here. Hopefully we have a good camera and mic today, but we will see. We will make it work regardless. As everybody's rolling on in here, please like the video, whether you're watching on Twitter or YouTube. It really helps the channel growth. We've had some good streams recently, so hit that like button. I will join in on liking it myself in just a moment here, and I'll help you guys out. Hopefully we hit 10 on the day on YouTube. That's always the goal for us nowadays. So without further ado, I'll take you all through the topics we're about to get into, and then when George is in here, we'll roll right on into them. Wolf said, always watching, rewatching, sometimes incognito. Wolf, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed our topics, our insights, the Prospero signals. Actually, that reminds me, we have to check in on QQQ and SPY net option sentiment here before I roll into the topic. So we'll take a peek at that because I know QQQ got a lot more bullish towards the end of last week. So let's see if it's the same this morning. Alrighty, I have QQQ pulled up and net option sentiment is at 60 here. So our bull bear line, for anybody who's new, has been at 40 for the SPY and QQQ for a while. And they were below them for many of the past couple of months early in here in 2025. But now today, the QQQ is officially well and above the 40 mark, firmly in the bullish level. The SPY is still lagging the QQQ a lot, but it's up off those, 0, 1, 2, 3 levels we were seeing. It's at 16 now, so not quite as bullish as the QQQ, but a trend higher as of late. Wolf said I do. Thank you, Wolf. And what we're going to talk about today is a little preview for earnings season, which is set to begin. Very few companies have already reported, but as we roll on into July and get into the back half of July, it's going to really heat up. So what are we expecting from a lot of the earnings? There's been so many headwinds and uncertainties for companies. So can they have good earnings for this quarter, or are we expecting some misses here? And how is that going to affect the current momentum we're seeing in the market? If you guys are newsletter readers, you probably saw that we shared a Buffett indicator statistic that's kind of flashing red. So I'll mention what that is if you didn't see it in our newsletter when we get into that topic later on. But how much do we think that is a warning sign for the market? Then we'll get into Donald Trump update with Canada trade tariff talks. So it looks like another bullish development for tech companies, I would think, where Canada was going to have a digital service tax on some of these companies, and they took it away after Donald Trump had some harsh words. So no good update in terms of tariffs, but it looks like a headwind for tech just got taken away, at least. So we'll get into that. Then I want to go over the China companies because we've seen multiple waves of these companies pump, and it seems like, where they have like a month straight of just ripping, but the gains never stay and they kind of fade back down. And we've had that twice. And I just saw it on Friday. Alibaba was in the top 10 of our signals. It was on our short-term bull list, and let's see where they are today. But I want to ask George, does he think we're going to get a round 3 for the China stocks, especially if there's some, I know that there was talks about how like China and USA signed some trade deal, but I never saw any specifics about it. I don't think it's really hit the media yet. So maybe if that's finalized and talked about, and the China stocks can pump again. So right now, BABA has a 83 net option sentiment, 80 upside, 92 profitability. So looking pretty bullish in the signals. Only 7 downside too. So we'll get into the China stocks. Then I want to highlight US dollar weakness, something we haven't talked about at all on stream. How much is the US dollar weakness to play in this market rally that we've had? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when the US dollar drops, all other assets should rise in the counterbalance of it. So, um, how much more can the dollar weaken? Do we expect the dollar to regain strength, and will that be a tailwind turn headwind in the second half of 2025? So a lot to talk about there. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream today.
Hello.
Um, are we in Greece now?
We are, and this is
Cool.
after I saw how bad the background was, the blurry background was last week. I tried to get myself a real background.
We have an old friend in the chat today, Wolf Stigma. He's just said he got into Coinbase thanks to the Prospero app, and I'm glad to hear that. We actually made a short about it too over the weekend, so maybe we'll have to bring back up Coinbase today here. Another stock I want to talk about, because they're poaching a lot of talent from OpenAI, is Meta. It seems to be like Sam Altman is feuding with all of the tech CEOs. It was him and Elon for a while, now it's him and Zuckerberg. So, um, you know, is this a good sign for Meta that they're able to be taking this talent? They're paying a lot of money, so we'll get into all of that. I see Jill is in the chat saying congrats. I assume to George for engagement, or maybe Wolf Stigma. I don't know. Wolf said thanks, Jill. So we'll let Jill answer. But another stock I want to bring up today is Nvidia, because a lot of insiders have been selling over $1 billion worth in the past year, and about half of it in the past month. So what does that mean for Nvidia? Updates on the TikTok deal, and a food company that actually just surpassed a few big chains to be number 3 in the world in terms of a chicken chain. I'll save it till the end. If people, we always send out a list of like our topics in the emails before, but if you didn't read that, I'll keep it a surprise for you all for later on. But that is all of our topics for today. As always, if you guys have any questions, concerns, macro, micro, AI, business, stocks, feel free to comment them and we will be happy to address them. Without further ado, George, the market is very, very, very bullish right now, it seems. SPY, net option sentiment, still lagging QQQ. QQQ is up to 60, though. How are you feeling? Are we heading in a straight line to SPY 7,000? It seems like we're just able to climb the wall of worries day after day here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm dealing with some things with my connection. I don't know if you can. I don't know how good how well this is working.
It's pretty choppy.
Yeah, pretty choppy. I would let me go back. There is a Wi-Fi network here that isn't very good. That my mother claimed her portable one would work, and I just tried that, and I do not think that works either. I'm back on the Wi-Fi network, though. Is this better?
I can hear you clearly. The camera's pretty bad, but I will just add a lot of B-roll if we use any shorts from this. So I'll make it work. It's looking at, actually, it just cleared up a little bit. I think this Wi-Fi is better.
Yeah. Hopefully. Let me see if I can shut anything else. I will. We're going to the bare minimum. No Slack. Okay. Is this okay?
Yep, I can hear you good. It'll work.
I mean, I might if you can't see me, I might just need to schedule this another time where I have like Wi-Fi.
I mean, I could see you. The picture's a little fuzzy, but I don't think it's too bad. I think it'll be okay. And you're not like lagging. You're moving fine, so I think it's all right.
Okay. Um, let's take a look at the markets. I mean, yeah, I was thinking about buying Robinhood this morning before open, just getting a little more, and I kind of just like missed it, and I missed the open. Um, but yeah, it's hard because I think what's going on that I think I underestimated is that um is that I think this stimulus bill uh is I think going to just add a lot. Like there's some good corporate tax. Like I was like looking at it, I was like, I mean, I'm calling it a stimulus bill. It's like I guess it's a tax bill. But it's acting like with 3.3 trillion added to our um deficit, it will end up stimulating in a lot of areas. So yeah, I think originally I was looking at it, oh, there's just like some tax cuts for wealthy individuals that is going to create more buying in the stock market. Um, but there is a lot of other stuff, um, like corporate tax cuts and things like that, um, that I think has been carrying it. Um, that was kind of a missing piece um, for me, and mostly because I don't think I was as sure about it as maybe some people that were more familiar with the process. I was thinking that, you know, a lot of even Republicans were saying that the bill needed to have less spending. Um, and so, yeah, I think that, um, I think with that, we're probably going to see the market keep running. But I'm kind of one of those people that that might can be hedging too much, and I'm going to have to consider like what makes sense because I do feel like the way it's been running, hitting these all-time highs. Part of me is just like, okay, that's a reason it's going to continue. But another part of me is just wondering if I'm going to right when I load up on more of these longs, we're going to get the correction.
Mm. So I feel like a lot of people probably find themselves in a similar situation as that, and I feel like there's a pressure on yourself from yourself to like catch up if you were overhedged, like you were saying, and you kind of like missed on a little bit of gains. Do you think that's like something you have to try and avoid doing? Um, and like, how do you think about that, like internally? How do you process all that so you don't like over leverage or try to catch up? Like, should your mindset just be like, okay, I'm just gonna like try to invest the best way I can from here going forward? Like you don't try to catch up on like the past month that you might have underperformed or whatever the case may be.
No, I mean, I don't think you should ever be looking to catch up. Um, but I mean, you have to lean into the trends, right? That's what I'm looking at today. Like Robinhood is a stock I'm considering adding, but like I'm just like I was considering, when it was up, I said maybe when it was up 4%, um, it might be charging a little too high, and I just wanted to see how the day developed a little bit. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think where I'm at is I got to start taking this bull run a little more seriously overall. I mean, I think especially because something like Palantir, um, was something that I probably could have. I already had in my portfolio, probably could have held because I think people are associating Palantir, especially some of AI things, with things that are going to do very well uh, with um, with the big beautiful bill.
And with the big beautiful bill, is there a sector specifically that you think it's going to benefit the most? From what I've been seeing in stocks, it seems like a lot of like the smaller finance stocks are kind of moving largely. I saw SoFi up a lot today. Obviously, you said Robinhood. Is there any other sector that could benefit more than them, or is that the one you think would benefit, is set to benefit the most from this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think those are responding to just like expectations that the stock market on a whole will do well. I think people think AI is going to do well. I think people think that, especially with like some of these tensions, and I believe there's increased defense spending. That those are categories that will do well. But I think that's really where you have to look. But like that's where I'm like thinking Robinhood, um, because it it's something um, that all stocks do well. Robinhood will do well. It's responded very well to retail. I think crypto is another thing that people are reacting to that. So Coinbase is another one I was considering adding today.
So on Friday, I think Friday officially was the last day of trading for Q2, and now we're entering Q3. And I noticed that right in the last 10 minutes of the day, Palantir had like a large move down, like larger than most other stocks. Do you think that was institutions that had made a lot of money in Q2, like selling, repositioning? Are we going to see more of that now, like this week? Are we going to see a lot of reversing of trends or kind of anything like that? Do you expect that to occur or no? Do you think more of the same for Q3? Or I guess
It's
tomorrow will be the first.
kind of confusing, um, especially with like the bill like doing well and the response to it Monday. Like that I can't say I understand that Friday sell off very well.
So something I wanted to bring up today was earnings season set to begin. We've gotten very few so far, but as July goes on, it'll become more and more. And I think like the third week of July is the most the most companies reporting this time around. How are your expectations going there? I feel like they've been like a lot of headwinds, a lot of uncertainties throughout Q2. Do you expect companies to be able to exceed expectations, or are you kind of nervous for the report of this quarter's earnings? And then how are you feeling about? We know that the what the companies project is almost as important as what they earn this quarter. So how are you feeling about all of it as it is set to begin very very soon?
I mean, I think projections we're going to see a lot of upbeat, maybe some raises because, like, also you have to remember a lot of companies suspended guidance. So I think that they might be, that might be something uh, that is viewed as very positive, even just like reinitiating. Micron did very well recently. I mean, I'd be worried about any consumer goods, right? Consumer cyclical, consumer defensive. You don't really talk about them together traditionally, but I would say both. I would be worried about sales for both because consumer confidence has been a little down as well. Uh, so yeah, I think that those are the ones that we really need that we really need to watch. But I mean, I'm very bullish on on tech, AI. As I said, Micron. Chips. I'm starting to get like we're in AMD right now. So yeah, we're starting to get a lot more bullish on that.
Something that was shared in the newsletter was the Warren Buffett indicator, which is when the total value of US equities divided by USA GDP exceeds 200%. And it just hit 205%, which is even more than the dot-com era. Does that statistic worry you or not so much?
I mean, I don't think this is Buffett's market anymore, right? And I think America's really different than it used to be. Um, in terms of, I think we've kind of just like completely left the map in terms of spending, and I think at this point we're pretty much spending to stimulate the stock market, right? And that's why the stock market's reacting this way, right? And that's why it would blow past the Buffett indicator, right? Um, I think that a lot of the way Trump thinks and he thinks about the market, and I initially was we were going to get these tariffs. I think there's been some more tariffs. I mean, we don't really know how it's going to work in the end, um, but he clearly wants to stimulate the stock market, and um, basically the way that he's been talking about this, especially, is that it's going to create 10 times, like this spending is going to create 10 times the value. Um, and I don't think that's been the way, we've had a very successful stock market historically, right? I think that was what kind of was pitched to us all the way back to Reaganomics. And while the stock market goes up, it doesn't seem to really help the financial footing of our country. So eventually we're going to have to do something that does that, or, it would be nice if I think like, part of this plan like included that, um, a way for, all right, we're going to cut corporate taxes now, but is there a way to figure out how to have that, help the country later? Like, is there economy stimulating thing that's going to have like a real impact on things like our debt long term? Because that needs to be taken care of. And no matter how well the country does, if we keep racking up debt, um, there's going to be a time where we're either going to be defaulting on that debt, or our credit rating will get very low, or we're going to need to raise taxes a lot. And I don't think anybody likes either of those plans, and I don't really see either party doing much about that. So, um, I mean, I kind of look like the stock market as um, like, it's kind of like a joke when people are like running for president of their middle school, where they're just like, oh, there's going to be recess for all the periods and free lunch and everything like that. I mean, I kind of think that's how um the US government acts about the stock market to like wealthy donors, where they're just like, yeah, well, we're just going to make the stock market go up, and but whatever happens there, it doesn't really matter. um but you know eventually, unless someone can describe to me, how like, the economy is doing well, is going to start like paying off our debt when that hasn't already, um we're kicking a major problem down the road.
Yeah, it seems like there's a great reckoning one day to come, and it just keeps getting pushed further and further and further. But you got to ride the wave while it's going, I guess, right? As long as the stimulus is flowing, it can only be moving in one direction. Something I wanted to talk about was Donald Trump over the weekend having very harsh words for Canada, saying, quote, terminating all discussions on trade with Canada. And it was a response to their digital services tax that was going to be in place on American tech companies. But they responded and actually took it away after he said this. So it seems like another bullish, even if it's slightly, at least a nudge in the right direction for American tech. They're not going to have to pay that tax now. So just wanted to bring that up, a development there. And, the trade tariff talks and, global tensions seem to be, besides this Canada harsh words from Trump, you would say seem to be headed in the right direction or no?
Sorry, 1 second.
Just want to shout out everybody watching on YouTube. I know we've been having these streams, and Twitter for that matter, at weird times. So thank you all for tuning in and finding us regardless. We appreciate it.
Well, I mean, I think this is like, there's that like taco joke and everything, but um I think there's two very interesting things about this development, where just like, I think this one actually works really well quickly, right? Broke off trade talks, obviously, like, um Canada reversed their position fast. But the other question I'd have to Canada is like, what the hell were you thinking, right? Did you really feel like how did you think this was going to play out? And if you were intending to back off so quickly anyway, what was even the point of doing that, right? Like, it would be one thing if they were extracting something from us, like, oh, like, he's like, oh, we're changing something about some deal or whatever. But, they pretty much just like fell flat on their face right away. Um, so I'm not really sure what the point of that was. I mean, unless like, sometimes it's a tactic to like do something that is not gonna like go over well, just to pull it back to then like do the thing that you really want because you have someone respond harshly to that. Maybe you like tire them out a little bit. Um, but yeah, I mean, this worked about as, I mean, definitely as well as any of the like um Trump threats, but it just left me wondering like what the plan was.
So in the same line of thinking as the Canada thing, but moving to China, I remember seeing last week that I think Besant came out and said that like a China trade deal had been signed, but I haven't seen any really like specifics on it, or I don't think it's been, put into the news much. But I was looking at some China stock signals in Prospero on Friday, and they seem to be looking good. BABA was actually in the short-term bull list on Friday, and there was an update from Baidu announcing an open source AI model named Ernie, which is quote unquote China's biggest public AI drop since DeepSeek. Do you think we could be headed for a China stock wave three? I feel like we've seen these these stocks rip really hard quickly. They can never seem to like maintain the gains. They kind of drift lower afterwards, but they do make really big moves when they make them. So, how do you feel about a lot of these stocks? And would you have a favorite amongst the group?
I don't think it's looking that great to be like Alibaba. Like Pinduoduo look pretty mediocre. Alibaba looks pretty good, but like when it's running, it's looking a lot. It looks a lot better than these metrics. So I mean, I don't know. I don't think the China stocks are looking that good. But if I was going to pick one, it would be Alibaba. But I don't like. I think one of the reasons um, that I've been hesitant to go more bullish, right, is some of these things like with China, with the EU, like just have not been resolved yet. And on the all-time highs, it's one of those things where I just feel like the risks outweigh the rewards. And I was burned a little bit early in the year when this stuff first started happening, where you'd have those days where like a bunch of the risk stocks, I had 3, 4 in my portfolio and they were down 10%, 20% in a day. And I would be like, oh, they might rebound. So I guess I'm still a little gun shy around that happening, and that's the nice thing. I mean, I'm more year to year than a retail investor because we have our returns reset every year. Um, but I would say um, I would say that uh, those principles are always good, right? I'm just kind of like being like, our year's really good. I don't want to lose all this really good ground that I gained, all these very positive returns. Um, taking risks when we've locked in, another really good year of good returns, and that works kind of like a micro level on a trade, but also for your portfolio, the more you don't get greedy and the more you're willing to like lock in your returns and take risk only when you're really sure that it's the right time to take risk. That's how you ultimately do very well.
Yeah, you kind of answered the question I was going to ask you is like, at what point are all the risks for these China stocks like priced in because they trade so low in like terms of PE and even like book value and all these types of things. And I don't know, too many specifics on these companies, but if they are growing like the American tech companies and like have the margins and all of those like similar type of attractive aspects to their businesses, like even if they could become not as valued highly as like Microsoft and these companies that are having like 30 plus PEs, but just normal market PEs, there would be a nice reversion to the mean there. But
Alibaba PEs, that's really, really low. Um, yeah, I mean that kind of risk is priced in. But the other thing that we talk about in China stocks that are a very real thing, is that what's also priced in is that they might be lying about their results, right? I think that's the other like problem, and I think that people are very skeptical, and I think both of those things are priced in. But yeah, there's definite upside to those stocks, but it's just like that's what I always say with um Alibaba, or what I say with China stocks. There's unknown unknowns. And that's really tough um when when you don't necessarily know how accurate the numbers are being reported. Um and you don't know how tensions, especially like active tensions with the US, are going to play out.
okay, so I think this is a new topic. I don't think we've ever discussed the US dollar strength or weakness on stream before. So it's always fun to me when we can bring up a new question. So the US dollar is hitting its weakest levels since April of 2022. What does this mean for the market when the dollar goes down? Is that part of the reason why the market's hitting all-time highs? Is it repriced like instantly, or does it take time? And does it mean anything? Can you help us us young investors out here? What does this dollar weakness mean for the stock market?
Well, the sometimes one is creating the other, right? Like all this money printing, like is what weakens the dollar, right? So if the money printing is happening, right, to like to throw some scenarios at you, right? While I don't really agree at all with the amount of money and where it's going or anything else, like if you are, say, printing money to cut corporate taxes, right, or cut taxes on the wealthy, obviously that's not how you're printing money. You're printing money to basically pay for the other stuff while not getting that same amount of revenue. But that's very different because those things, people do end up buying stock, right? So those things will make the stock market go up. But you could deflate the dollar by printing money to spend on, say, like social programs. And that ends up getting that could end up being like way worse for your economy because those don't necessarily help the stock market. Now, do they help other things? Yes, absolutely. And within some other countries, we actually see a lot of successful economic scenarios that kind of balance a lot of these considerations a lot. But yes, in the case of like spending, like printing money or getting less revenue, so you have to put money into other things, fund budget deficits by printing more money instead of collecting the taxes. That will weaken that will always weaken the dollar. But it doesn't look like in a way that I was talking to someone who understands the economy, I would say pretty well, this past week, who was just like, Trump doesn't care about a weak dollar. He does want to stimulate the economy. He does want lower rates. And those things will weaken the dollar.
So we're expecting the dollar to continue weakening, it sounds like, but hypothetically, if the dollar were to start strengthening, would that be a headwind for the market in the short term?
If the dollar starts strengthening,
Yeah.
well, it's not going to happen. Things don't happen in a vacuum, right? Like I don't see why the dollar would strengthen, right? Especially because we're probably, I mean, especially with Powell, um, maybe being on the outs, like maybe pressure to cut rates to stay, or just a successor just being named. Yeah, there might be. I don't really see a reason for it to increase.
So this is something I wasn't gonna even bring up today, but now that you said it, I'm curious. Like Powell cutting rates, the Fed cutting rates, how could they do it at this point if the momentum stays this strong and the market like really creates new all-time highs and has momentum? Um, how would it be possible to cut rates at that point?
Well, I mean, they're they have that dual mandate, right? They have to guard against inflation, um, but and also stimulate the economy, right? If you cut rates, you do have more money flowing into stocks above other things. Those companies hire more, right? You only have to raise rates or keep them high if you're worried about causing inflation. And inflation is getting down to that like 2% target. It's not all the way there, like they talked about. But these things take longer to impact, right? So we very well could be in a place where we can start like cutting rates and hit that 2% inflation target. I don't personally think we're there yet. I think Powell's very sharp. And if he doesn't see, like, if he thought we were there already, he would be cutting rates. But if we're getting to our inflation targets, rates are higher than we want them to be historically, and there's no reason not to cut them unless inflation is sticking around. Then you really shouldn't cut rates.
So spinning now to Meta, I wanted to bring them up today because they are making major moves in the AI space recently. We covered them acquiring 49% of the AI startup recently, and now they are trying to poach talent from OpenAI and it looks like they are succeeding. And I heard Sam Altman talking about how, I don't know if he was criticizing, he was definitely unhappy by how Meta was offering a lot of their talent, like $100 million packages to leave OpenAI and come to Meta. How does this make you feel about the current state of Meta AI? The fact that they're like really going, it seems like all in now and like making a big effort to acquire talent fast. Does it make you feel like maybe they feel like they're behind? And do you think it's a good strategy now to, you know, take OpenAI talent and acquire this new company and everything they're doing as of late?
I think they definitely feel like they're behind. I also think Meta has um, one of the best user bases in terms of um, WhatsApp now. I mean, WhatsApp, I've been traveling, like WhatsApp's used so much around the world, right? If you could integrate Gen AI into that better, right? Because I think a lot of people are like going into OpenAI and like copy and pasting something into say WhatsApp, right? If you could cut out the middleman there, there's a huge upside. And I mean, this is the classic example of what you do when you have more capital, right? I think it's smart. I don't think like I don't know why. Well, I think a few things. One, um, I don't know why OpenAI or Sam Altman or whatever is surprised, right? You create a really valuable product, and a company is like bigger than you, like Meta, um, then they're going to try to, they're going to try to outspend you to beat you on that value product. Now, the question is the weird deal with Microsoft actually standing in their way, right? Because if it was a more traditional acquisition and Microsoft owned 100% of the company, they might be spending just as much as Meta. But it does kind of beg the question, and maybe Sam Altman's, maybe what he's actually mad about is Microsoft isn't being responsive enough in keeping the people. But I do think the contracts are kind of crazy. And we always talk about that with acquisitions, right? It's good to make acquisitions, but at what price? And, I don't really know what Mark Zuckerberg's plan to monetize these hires are. But like I said, there is the potential there. I'm just not sure. But I will say one thing about the potential plan, right? I do think that um, they're doing a lot in virtual reality, augmented reality too, and that could be a big money maker.
So, one more thing on this topic. I thought a very interesting point from Sam Altman, and it was more on like the business side of things. He was talking about how he doesn't expect this move by Meta to work out because when you set up a company culture of acquiring people and they're joining your company purely for the money versus the mission that the company is trying to pursue, there's like a misalignment of incentives there. Do you agree with that, or how do you feel about that from Meta's perspective when these people are joining them basically because they're giving them a bag to join?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's capitalism, and it sounds like sour grapes um, from Altman, who's kind of a classic sour grapes guy. Him and Elon Musk do a lot of complaining about other capitalists as capitalists themselves, often about each other. But I don't think I think that's just the game, right? Um, Now, whether it's going to be worth it, that is a very interesting question. Um, but I don't think anyone that isn't in like anyone that isn't looking exactly at um, Meta's roadmap, it's hard to comment on. But like we're saying, stocks are about the hype cycle right now, and Meta stock is doing well, right? Sometimes like making these big splash hires, right? It doesn't even necessarily need to get to a product for it to be successful if people are buying into the hype. And what are we in right now? It's a hype market. So it sounds like sour grapes from Altman to me.
All right, definitely the last thing, but now it made me think about something else. So Altman has had problems with Elon. Zuckerberg, Microsoft. He's had a lot of people that were like early in OpenAI leave. I think they like fired people at one point and actually even came back. So it seems like the problems are around him. It seems like he's having a lot of problems with different people. Um, I mean, does that make you feel worried about like his ability to lead this company? Um, and just like, how do you feel about Altman? The fact that like it seems like he's having problems with people at all ends of the spectrum. Like whenever who's ever in business with him, they seem to have a rift at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's part of his strategy. Like he seems to like the underdog, like where he's the underdog and all like, but it's hard for him to keep playing that card, I would say. Um, but I think that's what it is. It seems to be a tactic um of his. Like, and I don't know how real these riffs are, or just like if uh I think this is where a tactic like, and I'll give you a little like story I was reading about Sam Altman, where he was talking about how he didn't know why people trusted his product, and he said he didn't know why people trusted his product because because AI hallucinates. Like I think Sam Altman does a lot to like not project that powerful of a mentality because I think he thinks that helps him. And it might, right? Like Musk is very polarizing. Zuckerberg is Bezos is like one of the most like for someone that just doesn't say much at all. He's like one of the most hated people. I mean, the wedding, I think I can see, why, but even before that, um, so I think part of Sam Altman's strategy um is like a little bit like, oh, like why is it, is kind of this like kind of outward like modesty underdog thing that I think works pretty well for him.
Okay, moving on to another AI company. Our viewers may have heard of it before, NVIDIA. So I wanted to cover this story about how insiders have been selling stock 1 billion plus sold in the last year, and about half of that coming in just the past month. But one other point I want to give before we hear George's response is that I saw a list of companies, and it was giving the net worth per employee average at, it was a lot of the tech companies, and Nvidia was number one, and I think it was like over 100 million or something, like on average per employee. And obviously, Jensen Huang and the top probably, you know brings that a lot higher. So I doubt like the lowest level Nvidia employees are 100 millionaires, but still the fact that they might have like the richest workforce of any company in the world is pretty crazy. I guess that probably goes into a little bit of why people are selling.
Yeah, I mean, I think you always have to like look at like the patterns and see what they are versus the norm. How much versus like how much they normally sell or whatever, like a billion in and of itself. Um, Especially because I seem to recall last quarter being a little low. But the other side is like, yeah, like a lot of insiders are selling at a lot of companies. We've seen those stats. And like, yeah, you shouldn't be surprised when we hit these all-time highs when insiders start selling.
Mario commented, Bezos is like Dr. Evil from Austin Powers. Do you agree, George?
Um, I don't know. I think he's a little more serious. I don't think like Dr. Evil's like way too silly. I mean, they're bald, but like no, I mean it's hard. Like it's one of those things. It's hard to talk about who Jeff Bezos is because none of us know Jeff Bezos, right? Like I feel like you never really know a public figure, but like I feel like I know a little bit about Jensen Huang's personality. I feel like I think I know a little about Mark Zuckerberg's personality because of like, you know, the lack of emotion. Those are two on like the spectrums. Like Jeff Bezos, I don't know anything. Like I don't feel like I know anything about him other than like this is probably the most we've ever known about him. And I feel like what I know about him is he probably wanted to get more attention than he was getting, right? And the person that he's with right now, and the way the wedding, like that seems like some of all this, like the stage, like that's the one thing I feel like I know about Jeff Bezos now. Like he felt like he should have been getting more attention than he was before. But other than that, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about him, about his personality, right? Like I'm saying, I don't think we really know, like, wouldn't even guess, like, little things like that. Like, would I be able to guess if, like, these people like to eat out or in, right? No. I was even thinking about it for those three, and I was like, I don't know. I could see them. I could see both. I could see, maybe, I'm sure they have private chefs if they eat in. I don't really see them cooking very much. I could see Jensen Wong cooking. I feel like he's got that flair, and like I think, but maybe that's just what Jensen Wong wants me to think about him, because he's more likable and I like to cook. But and I want to see more of myself in him because he's affable. But yeah, like I don't think we know anything about him, but we do know that you shouldn't read too much into insider sales, but it's also not a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Two more topics to go on our stream today. If you're liking the stream so far, hit that like button, whether you're watching on Twitter or YouTube. It helps us out a lot. And I'll just say, if you guys have any questions, concerns, comments, keep them coming. It's been good to see the chat moving today. All right, so a group of very wealthy people, this is from Donald Trump's words, are ready to buy TikTok, whose identities he cannot reveal yet, but in 2 weeks, we are going to get possibly the final bidder for TikTok. Are you curious about this at all? Are you still like excited about it, or are you kind of over the whole thing at this point? And whoever it sells to, not really caring about. I mean, it is a huge social media platform, so I would think if one of the major tech companies like is the final buyer of it, it would be a bullish thing for them, I would imagine. But how are you feeling?
I didn't even know this thing was still happening. Like that's how much I forgot. That's how much I forgot about it. It was like a big thing, and then it wasn't. I do think it's kind of funny. Like, what is it? What does he mean, a group of wealth? Does he mean like a private equity company, or does he mean like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg are like teaming up to like buy it together? Like, I think he probably means like, or it's like a sports team where it's like a group led by Magic Johnson, is doing it. I mean, I think he's probably talking about some private equity company if he's talking about like a group, because like you could share ownership of a sports team with like a group, but can you imagine like you know like Google and Meta like trying to share TikTok? That sounds like a nightmare.
So I can actually give a little insight to this because I'm not sure this is certain, but what it seems like a lot of people are thinking is there's the guy Mr. Beast. I think I've talked about him before with you, but he's like the biggest YouTuber in the world, and he is leading a group. I don't know who he's like talking to help him because obviously he couldn't pay for it, but so maybe an investment firm, but he's like leading the charge, and that would be very interesting because he's always been YouTube, YouTube, YouTube. He's the biggest YouTuber in the world. All of the interviews he's done, he's said like YouTube is the best, and if he were to buy or lead the charge of buying TikTok, and then maybe if he moved his content there or started, posting there more, it would be an interesting switch for the power dynamics for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that would make a group, but I just like, but again, like that's kind of the same thing that I'm talking about with like the like group led by Magic Johnson thing. It's just like that's not typically how you lead a company, right? Like I don't know, like I'd be pretty nervous like about the TikTok brand if I were TikTok, like handing it over to someone like what is Mr. Beast that's never been like the CEO. Like he knows how to run a YouTube channel. Does he know anything about running like a massive, like, basically software play? That's just a very, very different thing. It's just like, yeah, he knows about his personality and how to do it. But yeah, it's a very different thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving on, our last topic of the day. Raising Cane's is the company that I teased in the beginning. If people didn't see our email, they just surpassed KFC to become the third largest chicken chain in the world. They're only behind now Chick-fil-A and Popeyes. Over 900 locations, over 5 billion in revenue. Do you think Raising Cane's could be the next hot IPO to come to the market, as we've seen recent IPOs do so well?
I didn't even know. I've never even heard of that. I imagine it's in like the South, right?
I think they're like all over the country, basically, besides like the Northeast where we are, because I've seen them in like Chicago, the South. I don't know about like way out west, but yeah, not by us. I've never had Raising Cane's.
I mean, I don't know. Like I think yes. I think consumer cyclical companies tend to be great IPOs. Just because if you know the brand, you're much more likely to buy it. We've seen some of these brands just do really well. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm thinking recently recently in like the past 5 years, you've had like Dutch Bros, Kava that have done really well. There have been some really bad ones like Krispy Kreme, which we covered recently. Actually, a lot of it seems like, Wendy's, I feel like is a constant short for you, or they always look bad in the signals. I was looking at Jack in the Box recently. Their stock has done terrible. So I don't know. That whole like, if you're a chain restaurant, like it doesn't seem like your brand is lasting unless you're like constantly innovating or like I don't know, recapturing people. It seems like a very hard business to maintain for like a long time. Do you agree?
Um, Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think part of that is because of what we're talking about, where sometimes they get over speculated, right? And then, you know, either cyclical problems hurt or new brands come along that are hotter, or a lot of them just like overexpand. I was talking about Sweet Green the other day and to someone like who's just like talking about how their ingredients were going downhill. And I was like, without even knowing much about the business, but kind of agreeing, I was like, I bet they expanded to too many locations. And when you looked at it, they did. They expanded to like all of these like very small places that clearly aren't as profitable locations. And they not only they oversaturated, they opened up just unprofitable locations that had to be supported by their profitable ones. And I think that's almost always the biggest problem with consumer cyclical brands that um, they think they have more expansion room than they do.
Yes. Are we planning on doing the model portfolio today?
No, and in fact, I have to run. But
Okay.
hopefully, yeah, hopefully that wasn't too bad. Like, let me know if it's. I will try to get another stream in this week, even though I wasn't planning. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, let me know.
Yeah. I think it was pretty good, but I definitely will. And thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed the stream today, and we will see you very, very soon. Maybe we'll surprise you with another stream. Bye, everyone.